From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors these broadcasts. Our guest for this broadcast is one of the highest-ranking conservative elected officials in the United States of America. It's my longtime friend, Eugene Delgaudio, who has twice been elected to the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County, which adjoins Dulles International Airport and is a leading bedroom community near our nation's capital of Washington, D.C. Eugene is an uncompromising, bold, outspoken conservative, and yet he has been able to win 2 elections in this very important jurisdiction. How did you do it, Eugene?
Hard work. I mean, in the tradition of the Conservative Caucus and in your shadow and following your example, I put my platform right in front of people and said, I'm a conservative. Not just a conservative, I'm a conservative leader. And I would lead on those issues that they hold dear. And I didn't hold back. My background with all the conservative issues, my membership in Young Americans for Freedom, and my animosity towards taxes and big government, and they put me through in 1999 and again in 2003.
And Eugene, you've achieved widespread recognition for your leadership through an organization called Public Advocate. My recollection is that you were the founder of the Ted Kennedy swim team.
Another one of those great historical moments when we invited your staff and my staff, and we had obviously people who want to remain nameless, but they put on scuba outfits, and we went out to the Capitol and commemorated in a rather direct way the anniversary of Chappaquiddick. And Ted Kennedy.
Some of our listeners are too young to remember Chappaquiddick. I remember it very well. I'm from Massachusetts. At one point, I was to have been the Republican nominee against Ted Kennedy in 1970, the year after Chappaquiddick. But as a favor to Chuck Colson, I agreed to run for Congress instead. But in any event, I recall turning on the radio and hearing what had happened at Chappaquiddick. And somehow, when liberal Democrats are involved in murdering innocent people, and one can say that's what Ted Kennedy did, they get a pass from the media, but conservatives don't get a pass. What were some of the other activities of Public Advocate?
Well, we surrounded Barney Frank's house at one point. He had a problem with, the male prostitutes, Steve Goby, and he was trying to claim that he didn't know that there was male prostitutes operating out of his one-bedroom apartment. So we surrounded the home and declared a hooker-free zone against Barney Frank.
Did it do any good?
He moved. He moved right away, within a week. We went door to door in that neighborhood as well, but there was a 24 hours a day hooker zone, and we were real kind of prevented from breaking that up, but we did get him to move off of Capitol Hill at least.
So those are 2 of the highlights of your career as a public advocate.
And there are many other things, but let's leave it short. And I could tell you that the Ted Kennedy swim team and the Barney Frank House Sitting Squad are personal favorites of every dear conservative who's been active here all their lives.
Well, I admire you for your boldness and your willingness to challenge the presuppositions of liberal hypocrites.
Amen.
Now, recently, you got some pretty good coverage in the Washington Post. I think you were on the front page.
They were accurately quoting me, and I was warning people about the hordes of immigrants that had overrun our localities here.
One of the reasons I'm glad you're a guest here is that so many people think that we can now walk away from the immigration issue in consequence of the Bush-Kennedy-McCain bill having been stalled in the United States Senate. But the issue is alive and well. It can come back at any time. And the best way to address the problem of taxpayer subsidies for lawbreakers and the whole illegal alien immigrant issue is to take action at the local level. And that's exactly what you have done. You have provided leadership and an example for the whole nation. Give us some of the background of what's been happening.
Well, here in Northern Virginia, just like any other major locality, you have a number of people here illegally, the illegal aliens, They, of course, have overwhelmed our system. They've overwhelmed our police system, our zoning enforcement, our school systems, our welfare, our social welfare programs, any number of programs, you name it. We even have government workers now trying to show them how to start their own business in Spanish. I have fought this, but piecemeal, it could be a never-ending battle. Last week, Prince William County passed a resolution saying we're going to ask people to prove that they're legal citizens here, legally here. And I took that opportunity where Prince William made the move, and I had been fighting this battle here. In Loudoun County, I had gotten tough overcrowding laws passed. I'd gotten the sheriff to agree to take illegal alien criminals in our jails and ship them home. And finally, I got a firm resolution on the part of the county government to tell an illegal alien day labor site in Herndon, shove off. And
you know, initially, you were not on the winning side of that issue. There were many people in Herndon, I recall specifically, who wanted no action taken about illegal aliens, in effect, being subsidized at this day labor site. But things turned around. Why do you think that was?
I got in there. Sterling is right next to Herndon. And with the people of Help Save Herndon and Help Save Loudoun and all these other groups, we joined arms across our county borders. And we collaborated and turned the town council and the mayor out, the old one. And there's a new regime in there. And they are starting that process of asking if they're going to provide this service for these alien job center, they're going to say, prove your citizenship, prove you're here in a good standing first. And we're collaborating on it. We're keeping the heat on from the Loudoun County government side, and Herndon is collaborating with us now rather than fighting with us.
Well, Eugene, you're a living example of the fact that leaders can change history. Had you not been a member of the Board of Supervisors, nothing would have happened, in my opinion.
I appreciate that, and I would agree with you for one reason. We're powerless unless we work together with others who are out of power. And so I joined arms across with Herndon. Then when I needed help, Herndon comes and helps me. And surely, you know, I needed help. And now it spreads to Prince William, and Prince William 9-0 for, you know, this action. And now I, of course, bring the Herndon people and the threat of election loss, you know, from two jurisdictions, Herndon and Prince William. I bring that to Loudoun on Tuesday morning, and I go from my 1 vote to 6, and before long it becomes 9,
well,
that's the membership.
With all due respect to your colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, they were initially quite timid in addressing this issue. And had you been unwilling to take the hits and to be bold and to perhaps even stand alone, had you not done that, nothing would have happened. But eventually, the positive response to your excellent leadership persuaded them that for political reasons, if for none other, it was important that they stand with you.
Well, the media is in shock that we were able to do this, but I have to give credit to all the citizens that were ready to march, and they marched. And I have to give credit to you, and I have to give credit to the people that support you, and I have to give credit to the hardworking individuals who have devoted their lives to the conservative movement. This is a victory for all of them. And to see how simple it was, to just walk in and be prepared to do what you needed to do and make it stand alone if you needed to stand alone. And that's what every county commissioner, member of the House of Delegates or whatever has to do routinely. I just do my part. I've seen so many people associated with you all around the country and with the conservative movement do that routinely. When it was my time, yes, I knew it was a lonely battle, but I knew you were there with me in spirit, and I did it with you in mind and others like you who have worked so hard.
Well, Eugene, God watches over those who do his bidding, and certainly the circumstances which brought you to elected office underscore that very point. You had a situation when you first became a member of the Board of Supervisors, something which most people thought highly unlikely. You had virtually no opponent, except a write-in opponent.
Right.
And then you were reelected despite being very controversial, being a steady target of left-wing criticism. The person who ran against you was, shall we put it nicely, a non-heterosexual.
That's right, openly homosexual.
Yeah, and there's still apparently a heterosexual majority in your jurisdiction.
There still is, and they were standing by me. And one of the things with issues in Loudoun County, as with any jurisdiction, You have to stand for what you believe in. You have to work as if you are, alone on it, and people will reward you with re-election if you're the kind of leader that they can trust with all their stuff, all their issues.
Well, I pray that you are re-elected. You're up this year. And is it a partisan election?
It's a partisan election. I have the Republican Party endorsement, and I'm running hard for re-election. And this issue by itself that we've brought up, asking people, starting down that path, passing a resolution that we are going to be focused on trying to end subsidies to illegal aliens, people who don't deserve tax subsidies. That's an issue that can go either way, day to day. I've been on the local television stations holding news conferences practically every other day this week. There is no question that this is going to be a hot issue and could turn against us at any time because the media is not with us.
Eugene, for us to win the battle on the immigration issue, we've got to fight it, excuse me, and win it at the local level.
Yes.
And you've provided an example which should be emulated and replicated all over the country. Have you heard from elected officials in other communities around the country?
Well, they've gotten the word. They've gotten the word how easy this is. We're just upholding federal law. We're just upholding federal law. That's the gist of the resolution, that we are committed to doing this in this particular code and looking at every single department. I've heard from 4 jurisdictions in mostly it's citizens who are saying, can I tell my county commissioner, can I tell my county chairman, can I tell my supervisor, that kind of thing. And the answer is yes. And, in every interview I've said, please tell your board to do this, please tell your local official. They live next door to them in some cases, obviously down the street. You can get a hold of them in 5 seconds.
We're going to have to take a break. We'll be back right after these messages, and I'm going to ask Eugene Delgaudio what kind of interaction he is having with state officials and federal officials. Stay with us, please. The Conservative Caucus is working to raise up a new generation of leaders who understand the principles of the Founding Fathers as set forth in the Constitution of the United States. In Article 1, Section 8, it says, Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin and to fix the standard of weights and measures. Congress has abdicated that duty, that responsibility, to the Federal Reserve, which now, by inflating the money supply on a continuing basis, each day taxes us more than Congress does by diminishing the value of our savings and our earnings. The Conservative Caucus, almost alone among national conservative organizations, is working to restore constitutional government, whether the issue is money or something else.
www.conservativeusa.org, 703-938-9626.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips with our guest, Loudoun County Supervisor Eugene Delgaudio. Eugene, people have been brainwashed by the media into believing that this is an issue about compassion. You're not uncompassionate. You're a loving husband and father, and you have compassion for people in need. But this is even more an issue about theft and robbery and money. How much is the average taxpayer paying to cover the cost of illegal aliens, and how is he paying?
Well, a variety of ways. We talk about the cheap tomatoes and the cheap lettuce, that we see these things on the internet, but in effect we pay hospitalization to a great deal, as you know. A gentleman gets shot in a crime, he's a victim, he has no insurance, and that ends up on the common insurance of us. We have a gentleman who was shot and it cost $500,000 to make him whole, and that's paid for by the rest of us. You multiply that many times, and that's a cost to the rest of us. You have, of course, the school programs. We have the fastest growing county in the nation is Loudoun County, and we're building 20 schools. It could be 40 schools before we're done.
By the way, I don't expect you to take a stand on this, but the Constitution Party of Virginia will soon be releasing its platform, which I believe will call for the abolition of the property tax and an amendment to the state constitution in Virginia, which mandates the state to involve itself in public education. Our position is that taxpayers ought not be required to subsidize the education of other people's children or to underwrite the cost of what we call government indoctrination academies, where values are transmitted contrary to those of the parents in many cases. But you have enough problems, so I don't want you to comment on that.
Well, thank you. We teach Mandarin Chinese. I'm a critic of Mandarin Chinese in a school where you have no standards of learning. I mean, you have standards of learning. You have people who are from other countries being taught Spanish when they already know Spanish. What happened to English as a primary language?
Well, if you visited a fast food restaurant lately, you would see there's a real need for teaching people English.
Well, and I'm saying English, all these costs, the school costs, the welfare costs. Let's talk about the human costs for a minute. You mentioned compassion. Lives are at stake. I've mentioned this to many people in my interviews. Lives are at stake. We have men and women coming here and taking their third world values and they're putting them into our society, and we're allowing slave-like conditions to exist amongst us.
We're being assimilated to Mexican values. Right. They're not being assimilated to American values. And that's the result of government programs. When I was director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, one of the things that I fought was the bilingual education agenda, which was not about teaching people English. It was about teaching them all of their courses in Spanish and other foreign languages, which makes it that much more difficult for them to become Americans. I'm the grandson of immigrants. My mother could not speak English, was kept back in the first grade until she learned English, and I thank God they made her do it. But today that isn't happening.
Well, we have 200 nationalities represented in America, minimum. I mean, I come from an urban area just like you come from Massachusetts. None of those nationalities, all 200 of them, representing every country in the world, none of them want people to live in squalor. But by our inaction, if we don't take a stand on these these illegal aliens that are here, if we don't take a stand, those illegal aliens, we are condemning them to a life of squalor just next door.
Well, you know, Eugene, one of the things that I find most troubling is the unwillingness of the Bush administration to cooperate with local officials who are trying to address the problem of the illegal aliens in their communities. What kind of experience have you had with the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, or any of the others?
I would be remiss if I didn't thank some of the elements of the federal government that have come to help us fight the gangs. They have come in. And
the gang problem and the crime problem is something that's seldom discussed.
Yeah, I mean, we had a gang hanging out in my town center. I went up to them, I sat down with them, and I started reading the Washington Post. And they were very annoyed that a gringo would sit down with them. They had their MS-13 colors on there, and they had their colors out. And they were very annoyed that I would be so comfortable hanging out with them. And they got so annoyed that I started splitting up the Washington Post with them and giving it to them. And they walked off. The next morning I get a call from the Commonwealth prosecutor. He says, "You were hanging out with a gang." And I said, "Well, that can't be any better than the Board of Supervisors." And they were staking these people out. And he said, no, you really could have gotten hurt. And I said, well, please, I mean, why don't you stop them? Why don't you break them up? And from that moment on, people understood that I was willing to do what it took to get these people broken up.
So you have had some cooperation from state and federal authorities?
Yes.
Well, that's encouraging.
But it takes a push, because just like with lawyers, you got to know a little bit about the law before you have a good lawyer. God love the lawyers. It's the same thing with law enforcement or state officials. You got to know your issue. And like this issue of illegal immigrants and illegal aliens, and the gang issue, and all these topics are all related to one thing. If we don't make it welcome for illegal aliens here, Howard, nobody else will.
Eugene, what can be done to share key elements of your experience with local leaders around the country. We've heard a lot about Hazleton, Pennsylvania, where they took a strong stand against illegals, and I'm sure there are courageous local officials all over the country who could benefit from your example.
The other shoe's about to drop, Howard. We're going to get the hammer down on us. I know the ACLU and all their lawyers and every liberal group is really jazzed about, oh, you're not going to save any money. Oh, you're going to cause all sorts of free action, freewheeling action, and unauthorized activity. All we're doing is focusing on upholding federal law. And for that, the establishment's going nuts. So we're, of course, first off, thank the Board of Supervisors. Write the Board of Supervisors, BOS, at loudoun.gov, an email. Shoot them up. They all 9 will get it. Boss, BOS, at loudoun.gov. All 9, even the liberals who voted with us. Give them encouragement. Second, take a copy of our resolution around. It's on our website at loudoun.gov, the government website, or I can get you a copy, of course, and I'll be available to give people copies. But emulate the stand we've taken and get your county commissioner to do that, or state commissioner. And frankly, yes, we are calling on Congress. We have a letter going to the President of the United States and members of Congress that represent us and the senators, asking them, a Board of Supervisors, telling them, you've been derelict in your duty. We're overrun here. We can't handle it with our county resources. It's just too much for us to handle, and it's an unfunded federal mandate that we're not going to take anymore.
We're going to have to take a break, but before we do, let me just suggest, Eugene, that it might be a good project for you or for Public Advocate or the board to prepare a manual describing what has happened in Loudoun County, which could be instructive for people elsewhere. I hope you'll do that. We're going to take a break. We'll be back after these messages, and Eugene will have some closing comments on what he's learned from this battle and what must now be done. Please stay with us. Since the presidency of George H.W. Bush, the father of the incumbent, we've heard a great deal of talk about something called the New World Order. This is something of which every American should be wary, because what it means is the transfer of control over our tax dollars and the setting of policies which affect us from an electorally accountable Congress to international bureaucracies over which we have no real control. Work with the Conservative Caucus in defeating the goals of the New World Order and restoring accountable, limited constitutional government in America.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper, and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
More than the entire population of Cincinnati. More than all the men and women in the Marine Corps. More than 4 times the number of unemployed auto workers. Since 1980, over 500,000 Americans who make clothing and home fashions have lost their jobs because we don't realize the impact of buying imported goods. So if you think looking for the Made in the USA label doesn't matter,
Next.
It matters.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors Conservative Roundtable. If you're interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, please check out our website, www.conservativeusa.org, or you can fax our executive producer, Art Harman, at 703-281-4108, or write to us at 450 Maple Avenue East, Vienna, Virginia, 22180. TCC, 450 Maple Avenue East, Vienna, Virginia. Our guest has been Loudoun County Supervisor Eugene Delgaudio, who has conducted himself in an exemplary manner, providing leadership, showing what can be done to deal with the crisis of illegal immigration in his role as an elected supervisor in one of Washington, D.C.'s biggest bedroom communities. Eugene, we have a couple of minutes left. What do you want the people viewing this program to remember?
I want them to remember that we, as a county, we can't do much to reverse a national trend. We can only take whatever territory we've got, and our jurisdictions end at our county line. But within our county, and within everybody's county, they've got to take territory. They've got to take their little piece of the pie and say, in this jurisdiction, your town, your county, you've got to take a stand. Will you allow your tax dollars going to illegal aliens or not? And what are you doing to stop it? Just expressing that position itself will be the first step. Then studying how to do it. And frankly, I need help. I need the Heritage Foundation. I need some real serious research. How can we prevent money going to illegal aliens? That process itself will require unity. And finally, actually following through on some of those ideas is going to take a lot of gumption. So this is just the beginning.
And of course, we've got to have Congress pressure the Bush administration to enforce the laws which are on the books against the hiring of illegals by these powerful multinational corporations, which are major contributors to both of the two big box political parties. Eugene, it's been great having you on the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
And I pray that you're very successful, not only in being reelected, but in continuing this battle and sharing the lessons you've learned with others. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Conservative Roundtable.